order. As our custom, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mandy, would you call the roll, please?
DeYoung.
Here.
Randall.
Here.
Butler.
Here.
Van Strylen.
Here.
Carlstone will be joining a little bit late, and Hopkins and Millard are absent.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to recognize all you hardy souls that turned out tonight on a bitter cold night. Thank you for your interest. The City Council recently adopted a code of civility. As elected officials, we pledge to promote civility through extending respect to others, listening to understand, disagreeing without disrespect, engaging collaboratively, and speaking up to address incivility. And following up on that, I would comment that when people do come up and make a point, it's sometimes kind of awkward because apparently we don't say anything or hear anything, but it's not a debate. It's an opportunity for you folks to express what's on your mind, and we listen to that, but it's not a debate. I would remind you that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast, so if you do come up, please talk into the microphone and introduce yourself, and please keep your comments brief. I take a motion to approve the tentative agenda.
So moved.
Support.
I guess we're it. So, all in favor say yes, opposed nay. Clerk call the roll.
Randall.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Mayor Ward would like to appoint Kim Mulch to the Historic Preservation Commission. If approved, Kim's term would expire on January 1, 2027. Could I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Support.
Okay. Is there anything you need to add, Mike?
No, sir.
Okay. Any discussion from you folks?
No.
Okay. All opposed, or all in favor, yes. Opposed, no. Clerk call the roll.
Randall.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Also, Mayor DeWard would like to appoint Councilman Butler to the South Central Regional Airport Agency Board. If approved, John's term would expire on December 31, 2027. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Okay. Anything to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Any discussion here?
I think he'll be a welcome addition to that committee.
We thank you for your willingness, John. All in favor, yes. Opposed, no. Clerk call the roll.
Randall.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion carried. At this time, we have the public forum. If there's any of you that would like to speak concerning the agenda, please step forward. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion concerning the consent agenda?
So move.
Support.
Is there any discussion on any of these items? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, opposed no. Clerk call the roll.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Randall.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes. Motion carried. We have a public hearing regarding a 69 kV SF6 circuit breaker, whatever that is, bids. Mike, you're going to inform us about this.
Yes, Councilmember DeYoung, I'd be happy to, and I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the board for a brief presentation on this item. As Councilmember DeYoung stated, tonight's resolution approves of plans and specifications and ultimately the form of contract and ultimately awards the bid for 69,000 kV circuit breakers for substation transmission improvements projects. So basically what's being 2 circuit breakers for the various substations that we have around town. Did connect the bid letting on this project on February 7th. We only had 1 bidder, and it was stated up here the low bidder was just under $85,000. And the project engineer believes that the bids are, what the proposal is in alignment with the form of the contract, or actually the plans and specifications for the contract, and is recommending to award the low bidder to Mitsubishi Electric in the amount of $169,992. And once again, this is for 2 circuit breakers, and we are recommending approval this evening.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Was that a shock having only 1 bid?
Not necessarily. There's a shortage of materials in the electric industry, so we're thankful we had a bidder on the project.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Those in favor vote yes, opposed no. Clerk call the roll.
Well, with the public hearing, we'll have to give.
Pardon me?
Public hearing, we'll have to give an opportunity for comments.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that wants to talk to us. Apparently not.
No written comments either.
Then we will go to vote. Call the roll, please.
Reindeerhorst,
Yes.
Van Strylen,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Next, we have a public hearing on a rezoning application submitted by Bo Brown. Please, Mike.
We'll need to do the resolution after the public hearing. Resolution
1B.
6808. Have that on there?
Nope.
It's on the preview.
Ah,
The ordinance.
this is resolution number 6806, entitled "A Resolution Approving Plans, Specs, Form of Contract, Estimate of Costs, Receiving of Bids, and Making Award of Contract for the 69 kV SF6 circuit breakers for the substation transmission improvements project." Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor, yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Reindeerhorst,
Yes.
Van Strylen,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Now it is carried. My apologies. And now we'll move on to the public hearing on the rezoning application by Bo Brown. Please, Mike.
Yes, Councilmember DeYoung, once again, I'd like to refer everyone's attention to the big board for tonight's public hearing. As Councilmember DeYoung stated, Mr. Bo Brown has submitted a rezoning application for a parcel that's just north of the Eagle Creek subdivision. And what's being proposed this evening is a change in the zoning classification of property from A1 agricultural to rural residential. Rural residential is the city's extraterritorial zoning district is for large estate-like lots. And generally, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the minimum lot sizes are approximately 3 acres or so. On this, and we have it right up here is the parcel. So Highway T15 is over here, the Boss London subdivision is right over here, and this would be the Eagle Creek subdivision that we have right here. The parcel that's being requested to be rezoned is this parcel, the black highlighted parcel that has diagonal lines through it as well. It is important to note that tonight's application is conditional, with the condition being that a final plat be approved for the property within 12 months of the rezoning request, or within 12 months of the rezoning being approved. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as alignment with the city's comprehensive plan, we do believe that it aligns with the comprehensive plan, particularly the future use land map. It is also important to note is that with this, the Eagle Creek subdivision is a low-density residential. So when we talk about rural residential here, it's low-density residential, so it is in alignment, it is in close proximity to a property that's already zoned low-density residential as well. So as a result, we don't believe that this would constitute spot rezoning on this. Now, it is important to note that the Planning and Zoning Commission did review this application at their January 27th meeting and unanimously approved tonight's request. Staff is also recommending approval as well.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
Any written comments, Mandy?
No written comments.
You folks have anything?
I've always thought this is a great place for a subdivision, so thank you for doing that.
All in favor 68-061, entitled an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Pella, Iowa by conditionally amending the boundaries of the RR district to include property generally located along the north side of Hempstead Drive, and directing the zoning administrator to note this ordinance number and date of this change of the official zoning map. And this is the first reading. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Discussion? Okay. All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, nay. Clerk call the roll.
Randall.
Yes.
Van.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Any interest in waiving the remaining readings?
We would need 5 here to do that.
Oh, that's right. You have to have a supermajority.
We're a little thin tonight. We'll move on to renew the Class C retail alcohol license for Tammany Hall.
Yes, Councilmember DeYoung, I'd be happy to explain this item. As Councilmember DeYoung stated, Tammany Hall has applied to renew their Class C liquor license. Now, if approved this evening by the Pella City Council, their new license would expire on February 28th, 2026. And it's important to note, at the time of the application or this evening, we're still waiting on the drum shop certification as well. So we are recommending conditional approval pending receipt of the drum shop certification.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Conditionally?
Conditionally.
Support.
Support? Discussion? All in favor say yes, opposed no. Clerk call the roll.
Van.
Yes.
Randall.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to resolution number 6807, entitled a resolution approving preliminary plat for Hempstead Hills. Please, Mike.
Yes, Councilmember DeYoung, this is very similar to the rezoning application that we discussed earlier this evening. Tonight's application, or what's being submitted as a preliminary plat, as council is aware, but maybe for those who are watching at home on Pella Fiber in attendance this evening, anytime you hear the word preliminary plat, what this is the overall game plan for the infrastructure for the development on there. Now, usually when developments are done, is they're done in phases, and usually when we have talked about final plats, that's usually the time when the infrastructure is completed and dedicated to the city. Well, in this particular case, tonight is the preliminary plat. The plat subdivides a 39-acre parcel into 4 buildable lots on this, which is consistent with the rural residential zoning on this. And Mandy, do we have anything additional on this item? Now, anytime we look at preliminary plats on this, it's the same criteria that we have for the rezoning. We always want to make sure that it is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The findings are exactly the same when we look at the rezoning application this evening. Housing is a key priority of the city. It was stated that in the city's comprehensive plan, and it's still a key priority of the city as well. Tonight's preliminary plat that we are considering, which is listed up on the board, actually provides additional housing for our community. So we feel from city staff standpoint that not only it's consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, but it also meets the minimum requirements of both the zoning and subdivision ordinances as well. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the plat at their January 27th meeting and made a similar finding, and we are recommending approval this evening.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Support.
Okay. Discussion? So everyone from planning and zoning is in support. All those in favor vote yes, opposed no. Clerk call the roll.
Van.
Yes.
Randall.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes, motion carried. Next is resolution number 6808, entitled a resolution approving engagement agreement with Eilers and Cooney PC to act as bond counsel in connection with not to exceed $500,000 lease agreement with the general fund.
Yes, Councilmember DeYoung, once again, I'd like to refer everyone's attention to the big board for a brief PowerPoint on this item. And actually, this presentation that we'll be doing this evening is for agenda items G2 and G3 this evening. It is important to note, when we talked about the golf equipment lease at the Boss Lawn Golf Course last fall, council directed staff to proceed with formal consideration of the lease agreement for the equally important to note in considering this item this evening is the current lease will expire in May of this year. Now, as Councilmember DeYoung stated, Resolution 6808 approves an agreement with our legal counsel and bond counsel for the proposed lease agreement. Likewise, Resolution 6809 establishes March 4th as the public hearing for the proposed lease agreement for the golf equipment, which I believe is over a 5-year period of time, and has a not to exceed amount of $500,000 as well. So, Mandy, is there anything additional on these items?
That is it.
I believe that concludes the staff presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on these items.
Okay, thank you. May we have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. Mandy, please call the roll.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Van Stuylen.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes,
Butler.
Yes.
motion carried. We'll move on to resolution number 6809, as Mike mentioned. Resolution fixing date for a meeting on the proposition to authorize a lease agreement payable from the general fund in the principal amount of not to exceed $500,000 for personal property for use by the city and providing for publication of notice. Anything else, Mike?
No, sir.
Okay. Motion?
Support.
It was a silent
So
yes.
That was a silent yes. Okay. Any discussion, does everybody understand? Hearing none, all those in favor vote yes, opposed no. Clerk call the roll.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Van Stuylen.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes,
Butler.
Yes.
motion carried. And resolution number 6810 is a resolution authorizing temporary transfer of surplus funds from the Pella Municipal Electric Utility to the City of Pella. Please, Mike.
Yes, Councilmember DeYoung, I'd be happy to explain this item. And as Councilmember DeYoung stated, what this resolution would do was approve a surplus transfer agreement. And we'll explain that in tonight's presentation. A little bit of background on this. What this pertains to is the infrastructure that was recently installed at the Timberview development and dedicated to the City of Pella. Now, originally with the Timberview development, the City Council approved the development agreement in 2002, and it included a benchmark grant payment of $500,000 once the developer completed the infrastructure and successfully dedicated it to the City of Pella. That dedication and acceptance by the Pella City Council occurred on January 21st of this year. It is important to note when we talk about the infrastructure and the cost of the infrastructure that was installed in Timberview, it totaled over $2,650,000. On tonight's claims abstract is a payment to the Timberview developers in the amount of $500,000. What we're talking about this evening is the funding source for the $500,000 payment that we're making this evening. So let's go ahead with the presentation. Now, as the ultimate funding source for this, what's being proposed is a loan from the city's electric utility of $500,000. And anytime you talk about loans from city utility funds, the first question we should be asking is there sufficient reserves in the utility to make the loan that we're discussing this evening? So tonight's loan, what's being proposed is $500,000 from the electric utility, which will be paid back by incremental revenues from this development. But let's talk about the electric fund reserves. At December 31st, 2024, the electric utility had just shy of $14 million in reserves for the City of Pella. Now, when we look at what is the absolute minimum that's required for fund balances or recommended fund balances, that depends on what direction or what authority you're asking. If you're looking at the finance formula that's been recommended by the state of Iowa, what the state of Iowa has said is the electric utility should have at a minimum $2.6 million in reserves. We like to go with industry standards anytime we talk about city utilities. The American Public Power Association has developed a very comprehensive formula for electric utilities that deals with your power supply factors, the age of your infrastructure for your utility. When you work through that formula, the minimum fund balance by APPA states that we should have a minimum fund balance on cash on hand at all times of roughly $9.6 million. Staff, for years, our findings have been very similar to the APPA number here, and we've operated with a minimum fund balance So we believe, based off our analysis, that the electric utility has sufficient reserves to finance this loan. Now, what's being proposed, if you were to drive out to the Timberview development, is right now it's ag property. They've recently installed infrastructure in the development. As those new homes are being built on the development, we're going to capture the incremental, what's called tax increment financing revenues, which is most of the property tax revenues those new homes are going to be paid. We're going to capture that and repay ourselves back, or repay back the electric utility as those homes are built. When we originally authorized the Timberview development back in 2022, we estimated at that time that it would take approximately 10 years to repay back the electric utility. And that was based off of approximately 4 to 5 homes being built a year. We think the developer is going to do better than that, so that number should be lower than 10 years. But again, development can be risky, so a safe assumption at this point in time is still that 10-year period of time on it. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Okay, and once again, we have 2 resolutions on this item, but thankfully only 1 presentation on this. So 6810 authorizes a temporary transfer of $500,000 to the city's general fund. Now, don't ask me why we have to go straight to the general fund, but the actual loan occurs in 6811, and it authorizes the general fund to advance the funds to the tax increment financing fund, or the Timberview tax increment financing fund, and then we'll work the repayment backwards as well on it as well. But this is how legal counsel has recommended setting up this interfund loan for this transaction. And once again, when we talked about the infrastructure for Timberview, it's the main drive at Hazel Street and these auxiliary streets that were also extended with it as well. And the subdivision has approximately 37 new lots, and in addition with that, there will be 1 city park, 1 lot dedicated towards being a city park as well. So with that, Councilmember DeYoung, I believe that concludes staff's presentation this evening. Be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on this item.
Isn't there an interest element to this?
Yes, it's very important. It is 4% per year is what we have as far as the interest being charged on the interfund loan.
Good. It's very reasonable. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Discussion. Welcome, Councilman. Hearing none, we will move on to a vote. All those in favor vote yes, opposed no. Clerk call the roll.
Dan Stryland,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes. Motion carried. Which brings us to Resolution 6811, a resolution authorizing advancement of costs for an urban renewal project and certification of expenses incurred by the city for payment under Iowa Code Section 403.19. Anything further?
No, sir.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Discussion? Do we understand?
Mhm.
All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Clerk call the roll.
Randall,
Yes.
Dan Stryland,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Motion carried. That moves us to abstract of bills number 2169. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve and issue warrants.
Support.
Any questions? Hearing none. Clerk call the roll.
Randall,
Yes.
Dan Stryland,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Motion carried. Anyone have anything else they would like to bring forward?
Dwight Young, 2509 Skokie Straw. On the Second Reformed Church that was torn down there, whatever happened to all the asbestos that was included in that project?
I'd like to direct that question back to our Public Works Director, Danny Byer.
Yeah, there was a subcontractor that spent, I don't know, at least 3 weeks or 4 weeks and removed it all out of both structures. So it was all handled appropriately and handled and hauled to the appropriate landfills.
Do you know where that landfill was?
I don't know if they gotta send me some type of certification yet, but
I heard that it was dumped on the banks of the Skunk River, and you know, I noticed it was all torn down by 1 o'clock on the day that they started. And I didn't see anybody out there in white bunny suits or anything looking for asbestos. Could you clarify me on that?
there was a trailer and 3 pickups parked right at the door for at least 3 weeks, hauling stuff out of there. It would surprise me if it went clear back to the Cedar Rapids area on the asbestos. I did not see it leave the site.
Does the city still have responsibility for that asbestos?
Not for the contract, no.
Thank you very much. I'm a little concerned about it. Thank you.
We were assured when this company got the bid that this is what they do and they knew what they were doing. That was comforting. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. We'll go on to policy and planning.
All right, what we're here to talk this evening with the mayor and council is on a legislative procedure that's called the city's maximum levy. And this would be for fiscal year 25-26. Now, when we're talking about fiscal year 25-26, we're talking about the fiscal year that would start on July 1st this year and extend through June 30th, 2026. Very important to note when we talk about the max levy that we're actually going to have a vote on March 4th on. Council can establish a maximum levy and then approve during the budget work sessions a levy that's lower than that amount. But the key is this max levy notice will be mailed out to every property in Pella on it as well, and at times it can be confusing. And so that's one of the items we just wanted to talk this evening about as far as establishing the max levy. Now, as far as options are concerned, when we talk about maximum levy, the city's current property tax levy is $10.75 per $1,000 of taxable valuations. We're right now in the throes of the 2026 budget process, but tentatively, it looks like our recommendation will be that we will be recommending holding the levy at $10.75. But I also want to make sure council's aware with that $10.75, with our recommendation to hold the levy amount at that line, the residential rollback in Iowa went up by approximately 2%. So for the typical residential home in Pella on this, we typically will be paying approximately 2% more to the city of Pella by holding a rate at $10.75. Now, as far as options are concerned with it, if you wanted to have flexibility and potentially add on to the city administration recommendation, we threw out an option of going up an additional 5% if you'd like to do that. That would generate approximately $390,000 in additional revenue for the city on it. But once again, this notice will be going out to every property in Pella, and with that, if you looked at the 5% plus the 2%, I'd say on the typical valuation increase, it could be a property tax increase by about 7% if you went up to 1130 on it as well. So what we're looking for is direction this evening, and I think what we've done in the past is we've actually given a couple of options for council to make that decision on March 4th on it, and we can do that again as well on March 4th. But again, what we're looking for is preliminary direction that council may have on as far as establishing the city's maximum levy amount.
Comments, wisdom?
Well, I have a comment. I'm not sure it's filled with wisdom, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. I always found this to be a very clumsy practice. We have not seen our budgets. We don't know what's in our budgets. We don't even know what color paper our budgets are going to be printed on. So to be able to go into this with an educated knowledge of what is likely to happen within our city budget for 26 is, to me, almost a blind process. I know the state is working with cutting our tax revenues. We don't know what they're going to do yet, and possibly won't know until March or April. And I guess my observation is, it's just a very clumsy practice, that it's very difficult to sit here and say, of course, we want to max it out at 11:30, you know? Just an observation.
The whole process is clumsy.
It really is.
Yes. I will comment that, well, no one likes their property taxes to go up 2% in today's atmosphere is nothing.
Right, but then again, when you look at all of the cuts and you look at the 2% here and 3% there, it just all continuously adds up and tends to fall onto the backs of the taxpayer, who, and rightfully so, they have this right, continues to want a lot of amenities within the community that they live in. So I always look at things like it isn't just 2%. It's 2% here and 3% there, and then another 2% over here. And then it all adds up quite quickly.
Couple observations. I was going to actually bring this up later on in the presentation. On March 4th, what we're also going to be doing is an overview of the city's 2025-26 budget process, budget, what's being proposed. And so if it gave a little bit of tummy comfort on what exactly is being proposed, we could do that before we establish our max levy as well. Right now, I will tell you, the departments did an outstanding job on this with it. We didn't have any requests for new employees this year. We had one request to convert a part-time employee to a full-time employee. Departments held the line on the operating side of things. They've been working very, very hard. The city has in general. So I feel really good about where we're at in this recommendation to hold the line at 1075. However, I would say, looking at multi-years, that may be difficult to do in the future as well. But at least for this upcoming fiscal year, I feel good with the 1075. But again, my only hesitancy, and I guess the comment is this is a clumsy process. I agree with that because there's a lot to do with the budget. We needed extra time to address the city's projected budget deficit, which we believe we're going to get done with this. But we needed the extra time, and the dilemma is when the mailing goes out, and we haven't even had the budget work sessions yet, you could create confusion if you go up to 11:30 and then ultimately go back to 1075 on
I
that
agree.
too. So
I'll be the first to state I am in favor of holding the line at 1075.
This is a max levy that we will not be held to, correct?
that's right.
Yeah,
So
I was quite sure that that's what.
So if we wanted to go lower than 1075 at the budget, you could go lower than 1075 if that's what you want to do.
You won't go higher than 1075.
Well, we won't go higher than 11:30.
No,
Only if
it
we
depends on
approve.
what you set. So if you set it at 10, if we get to March 4th, we can give a couple of options on that night. You can make up our minds that night after you see the budget overview. But if you set it at 1075, you can't go higher than 1075 for the 12 months. If you set it at 1130, you can't go higher than 1130.
But we still could go down.
Oh, yes.
That's what I'm
Under
saying.
both options, yes.
Which would be the ultimate goal.
My opinion on this is that we've all experienced it across the board, across our community. Prices are rising. Our state is obviously countering that with less funds. So to echo Lynn's point, it's harder to do what we're supposed to do, more than we're supposed to do as far as amenities with less. So I like the idea that it doesn't obligate us to raising it, but I think we have to leave some room above what we've held the line at historically, because everything's getting more expensive. We've seen bid after bid open, but thankfully this last couple of rounds, maybe the thing's turning, but everything's higher than we anticipated or the engineers anticipated. So it's unfortunate logic that we have to at least leave ourselves some room to do it well, in my opinion.
struggling today compared to what they were not struggling 2 years ago. That's a concern I have for a lot of people.
Everybody good with that? Okay.
I would say
We'll have a couple options on March 4th. We'll structure the council meeting on March 4th and have the budget overview before we consider this item.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Last item that we have for policy and planning tonight is just the project updates. As we discussed, we'll actually be doing a budget overview on March 4th as well. And during that evening, we'll also be talking about the proposed repair at the Mullengrove parking garage. I would also like to mention one additional item on it as well. At the last council meeting, the council authorized myself to make contact with Marion County to discuss our local option redistribution agreement, which expires on December 31st of this year. Marion County has informed me that they'd like to discuss the renewal once the state legislature is through their legislative session. So the dilemma that we have, and that's one of the items that working that's been kind of challenging on it, is with the budget, is that could likely be sometime in May of this year on it as well. So just want to make sure that you're aware of where that stood.
Which is, to the earlier point I made, there's another possible 2%. You know, we don't know what that renewal will be.
And I'm expecting less rather than more. I hope I'm wrong.
Anything else? Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Accept a motion for adjournment.
So